Thank you all again for coming to the 2021 God Outcomes Award, our informational webinar. My name is Katrina McCarthy, and I am the Evaluation and Research Associate here at CADCA. Joining us today are our 2020 God Outcomes winners. So from Coalition in Focus, we have Christina King with Dedham Organization for Substance Awareness. If you want to just say hi really quickly so they can see your face, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, I'm Christina King. I'm really excited to be here, and thanks everyone for joining us.
All right, thank you. For our Coalition of Excellence winner, we have Nicola with Lindenhurst Community Cares Coalition.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for having us to be with us. And thank you very much.
Fantastic. And finally, for Coalition of the Year, we have Hannah Castleton and Chris Zerfa from Link Together Coalition.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, go ahead, Hannah.
I'm just going to say hi too. We are just excited to be here with you all and share a little bit of our knowledge.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, welcome. It's an exciting thing to do. So get all you can out of today.
All right. Thank you guys very much. And you'll be hearing more from them a little bit later. So just to get started, I'm going to go ahead and just put up a poll while I go through this information, just to find out a little bit more about you guys. And so a brief history about God Outcomes Awards. It's been around for 17 years, and we recognize exceptional community coalitions that effectively contribute to alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use and misuse prevention. Since our first winners, Boyd and Green Up Champions for a Drug-Free Kentucky and Youth Leadership Institute's Marin County Prevention Youth Council, God Outcomes has continued to change and evolve. So even just 2 years ago, we had aligned the requirements for God Outcomes with what's taught at the National Coalition Academy. So the same products that are taught and worked with at the Academy are the same products submitted for the application. And so what's new for this year, we got a couple things, which is really exciting. Well, first is coalitions in year 2 of their Drug-Free Communities grant are required to apply. Now, we want to be able to see how you've been able to apply what you've learned at the National Coalition Academy in your community. In addition to that, we've also created a Blue Ribbon Coalition program. So we wanted to really especially recognize those coalitions who did an exceptional job in really updating and utilizing their products. And so any coalition that moves on to phase 2 of the awards will be recognized as the Blue Ribbon Coalition. In addition to that, there will also be a new Blue Ribbon event at Forum, just to have that extra level of recognition and getting to see each other a little bit in that kind of community. Let me go ahead and close this poll. All right. In addition to that, we have aligned the National Coalition Academy grading rubrics with God Outcomes, and also we have a smoother online application and grading process. Going into the award categories, so I mentioned there is the Special Blue Ribbon Coalition, special recognition for those who move on to phase 2. But the main award categories are Coalition in Focus. So you would be looking at short-term outcomes of 6 to 24 months, Coalition of Excellence for intermediate outcomes of 1 to 4 years, and Coalition of the Year for long-term outcomes, which is about 3 to 10 years. So looking at the application requirements, as I mentioned before, the same products that coalitions learn about and develop during the National Coalition Academy are the same ones that you see here and are submitted for the application. So community assessment, your logic model, strategic and action plan, evaluation plan, communication plan, and sustainability plan. A lot of plans. In addition to that, there is a one-page description of your outcomes based off of the award category that you're applying for. And this is just to give us a really clear picture of what those outcomes are that you've achieved. And just as we move the grading rubrics online, the application form will also be online, just to make that whole process a lot smoother. And there are templates for each of these products, as well as the scoring rubric. And so you can go ahead and find those at www.cadca.org/apply-go. And so you can really use these as a guide as you're filling out your application, but they definitely don't have to look exactly like the template, as long as all of that content is there. And so phase 2, the top 25% of coalitions for each award category will move on to this phase. And phase 2 really allows you to showcase how you're able to achieve those positive outcomes. So first, you'll be doing a 10 to 15 slide presentation, really telling your coalition story, the thought process, the steps taken, going through your logic model a little bit, and then of course, those outcomes that you've achieved. And then the second part is the infographic, which is a really quick and easy way to lay out the important information in a very appealing and eye-catching way for your audience and for your community. So depending on the infographics audience, it can really be shared throughout the community. Now, these are very intentional requirements, since both can be repurposed to share your story to stakeholders, coalition members, and your community. So we wanted to make sure we can provide you that opportunity for that dual purpose. So a quick recap of the application steps. First, make sure you just select one youth substance use issue for your application that you'd like to highlight. Step 2, identify the community level outcomes that you'd like to apply for and that you've achieved. So short-term, intermediate, or long-term. And then last, submit the required coalition products, the one-page description of your outcomes, and the online application form. Once again, please go ahead and see those templates in the scoring rubric on our website. I think they'll be very helpful as you go through the application process. So a couple of helpful reminders, some questions that I get, some things that I see each year that I think can be helpful for you this year. I want to make sure you guys submit a full logic model. This means a problem, 2 root causes, 4 local conditions with 2 pieces of data for each. It doesn't matter which award category you're applying for, you still need a full logic model. And then you can also see, depending on your logic model, depending on the award category you're applying for, how those tie to your logic model. So there's a template on the website for that. Make sure you're including any data you've collected in your community assessment, focus group data, survey data, some things that you've gathered from your community. Those are the same numbers that you want to be using throughout all of your products. That's where you're basing your plans from. So we want to see that data. For the strategic and action plan, this year, goal 1 and goal 2 are required. So increasing community collaboration and reducing youth substance use and misuse. That's a little bit new this year, so just make sure you're doing both of those. Also, we want to make sure you're showing a good balance of individual and environmental strategies. So I will point out for the application, you will have to show at least 2 individual strategies and 2 environmental. So make sure you keep that in mind. We always encourage coalitions to regularly update and renew their products. And so those are the best materials to submit for your application. And then finally, once again, please, please, please take a look at the grading rubric. This will really tell you exactly what the graders are looking for as they're going through your application. And then if you do have any questions, I'm always happy to help. Which actually leads us phase 1 application support. So if you do have any questions about the application requirements, you can always just contact me at gotoutcomes@cadca.org. So why should you participate? Well, all applicants are given very in-depth feedback for coalition products. So it's definitely a growing and learning experience to continue improving those guidelines for your community's work. And you'll get free coalition development support to enhance those products. What's new this year is the CADCA Blue Ribbon Coalition and the opportunity to participate in Ideas Fair, poster presentation, as well as the Blue Ribbon event at CADCA's National Leadership Forum. As for those who do win, you'll be recognized throughout different CADCA communication, like the newsletters, our website. You'll be featured at the Got Outcomes session at the 2022 National Leadership Forum. There will be a custom award of your coalition's name and successes engraved on the front. And some nice things also are the eligibility to participate in the Graduate Coalition Academy, as well as chances to be considered for other CADCA training and opportunities. So that was a quick run through of all the requirements. And so I would like for you guys to hear from our Got Outcomes winners from last year. So I'm going to go ahead and ask some of these questions if everyone can unmute. But the first question, how was the application process influenced your coalition's work? Let's go ahead and go with Hannah, sorry.
Okay, so when we are talking about how this influenced our coalition work, I would say, first off, it really helped us to narrow our focus when we were thinking about, we chose youth alcohol use, specifically among 10th grade students in high school. And then we were able to really think about what the initiatives we were doing and how those directly related to our local conditions. So as we were looking back at our logic model to get this ready for submission, it really helped us look and make sure that, you know, we are keeping on track with our logic model. So when we started preparing, we actually had thought about this probably about a year in advance before we had applied. So we did really have some time to refocus our efforts and make sure that we were following what our coalition mission was.
Thank you, Hannah. Did you have anything to follow that up with, Chris?
Yes, thank you. So along with everything Hannah said, I would say our coalition, how it's changed our work is we've always collaborated and really made an active effort to include our coalition partners in any way we can with the work we do. But applying for this really brought a new cohesiveness to our coalition with the partners. We included them on updating our logic model. We included them on as many pieces as we could at our for our action item during our coalition meetings. And then we reached out by email to say, hey, we need a few of you to edit these products. We need a few of you to meet in a small, like mini sector meeting to discuss this. And then we had key informant interviews, and we included them in as many steps as possible and gave them the recognition back, because we were putting together the application, which is it's a big undertaking to do. But we really wanted to highlight them and all of their work out in the community, and give all the kudos to them and include them in it, because we couldn't have this award without them doing their work in the community. So everyone was on board, everyone supported us. We had people stepping forward that maybe weren't real, you'd be surprised by it. People that stepped forward and said, oh my God, yeah, I will take this, I will read this, I will edit it for you, I will ask questions that I don't understand. And just very rewarding. And everybody really, when we won the award, everybody really felt a part of it. And it just kind of lifted everybody up on our coalition, and it was really good. Am I missing anything, Hannah?
No, I would just, yeah, I think I really like that last point that you mentioned, is the involvement of the coalition members, yeah, and the pride that they felt, you know, going through this process as we got accepted. into phase 2, that was a huge win for everybody. So everyone
Mhm.
felt like they were able to contribute. And as we all know, working with our coalition partners, the more they feel involved and like they're contributing, we have better participation at meetings. We have, better email response levels. So we were really able to see that connection with the coalition grow stronger.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Thank you guys for sharing that. Christina?
Sure. Sorry, I thought we were going in a different order. So I would say that for us, there were two major ways in which I felt this application process influenced our work. The first, as Hannah and Chris touched upon, it was a chance to sit down with our data and synthesize what we have. Like what do we have the data on? Where are we actually missing data? It helped to inform not just our application process to decide what to focus on where we had the strongest data, but also, okay, well, going forward, how can we collect other data on these other local conditions? So it's been really helpful to have these updated products. And then the second way is that, for a relatively like a new-ish DFC, where, I mean, we're year 3, we applied, we were like, year 2, year 3. It really imbued the whole community with a sense of pride. I know that our community partners were putting in a lot of work during a time where we were separated by COVID and forced to do a lot with the barrier of a screen between us. And I know some of our coalition volunteers were feeling, disheartened or frustrated at the barriers, but doing this specifically during the pandemic was an opportunity to lift up everything that all of our partners were doing. And yeah, I can't describe how proud people from the community are that we got this award. We're so happy about it. And it's really invigorated us to move forward. It's like, yes, we're on the right path. We're going to keep going. And we have this new energy in the wake of it.
All right, thank you. And last, we have Nicola.
I mean, I think they cover pretty much everything in their answers. They were very thorough. And I mean, I can say that the best thing that happened is really that you can really gather your community and all the partners in the coalition together. And especially during COVID time, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of, not beginning, but it was already like months in. And a lot of people still didn't have the connectivity that we have now. And I have to say that definitely that helped, at least with our partners, to bring that in and teach them how to use Zoom. And so in a negative situation, with all the constraints we had with the pandemic, definitely the process of going through this application helped us to get in touch again with our community, because it was a great 2-3 months we were away from. I mean, everybody was so distancing each other. And so I would say definitely I can say that impacted in a positive way. So that the influence is in a positive way, plus everything that Anna, Chris, and Christina said about how it influences.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next question. What difficulties did you face during the application process? Let's go ahead and start with Nicola this time, and we'll
perfect.
go reverse.
So I think that in the beginning, it really felt overwhelming. All the products need to be reviewed. We all know how important the products are, and sometimes you feel like, how did I get this go so back? I'm not, it's not updated. I have to update that, and you have to delegate the work and gather the data, and you feel ashamed maybe you didn't collect the right data. It is a little bit overwhelming in the beginning, but then once you go through the process and the application and you review all your products, you start to feel better, and you see that you're not doing so bad, and it kind of gives you a roadmap on how to improve for the next year. So where is the difficulty in the beginning, and that gets better at the end. But definitely, I would say if I have to to point to specific things, it would be data, especially now. I think people that are, we were coming in the beginning, as I said before, the pandemic, so we already had all the data from a year. I don't know how people this year with all the pandemic and how hard it is to collect data for the past year is going to be, you know, when they're going to go to see the baselines and they're going to be a year older than what they thought it would be at this point. And I think that if I have to foresee a difficulty, it would be data, because it was already hard for us a little bit to, you know, see, oh, this piece of data is a little too old. We have, you know, kind of fix it. And another difficulty that I have to say is that it's the layout, because you always want your product to look beautiful. And I think that in a way, when you submit an application, whoever looks at them, you know, also evaluates the way you present them. And I think that that is another difficulty, to make sure that everything looks great and neat and all the spacing are right. But if I can give a piece of advice, I always say that, oh, that's the next person.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, you can ask someone else. I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time.
No, you're perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and move on to Christina then.
Sure. So I think that, like, difficulties. So for one thing, it is a long process. Don't wait until the last minute to apply. I mean, this is both a difficulty and advice. It's long and it takes a lot of work, and it's hard to do it on top of the other work that you're already doing with the coalition. It's very extensive, and it's that way for a good reason. But it like Nicola was saying, it's definitely overwhelming. The other difficulty was that we had been planning to do youth focus groups to reassess our local conditions using qualitative data. We planned to do those during the spring of 2020. Obviously that didn't work, so we didn't have the data we needed or wanted for the local condition that we were looking at. So you know, I talked to Katrina about it, and then we ended up, you know, I put it in the presentation. It's like, look, this was our plan to do it. We were going to do X, Y, Z. We can look at this other data, which points to what we're trying to get at. But yeah, we just, in an ideal world, we would have had more data to present. So I see in the chat that people are going, you know, posting about, well, what about data collection? You know, I would still say it's worth applying, because it's hard to gather data right now. So those were our two major difficulties.
All right, thank you. Chris?
A couple different things to touch on was the time is a big chunk to dedicate to this, for sure. I'm not sure if some of you guys applied alone or some of you are looking at applying alone. I would encourage you to get a co-worker, to be a team to do it. Hannah and I did every step of the way together. And then, like we touched on before, we reached out to coalition members, and that was difficult, but not difficult. It had both its challenges, just to reach out, let go when we knew like we could do it, but we could do it better with being patient and waiting for them and putting it out to 6 people and then getting their feedback. So you really have to like plan your time well in allowing to include your coalition members and for them to get the feedback back as well. And when we narrowed it down to alcohol, it was hard because we had other things we wanted to include, but we're like, no, those are marijuana. So it's tough to not tell everything, but you really have to zero in and fine tooth even your community assessment and go zero in on alcohol. And it was hard for us to let go of some stuff because we really wanted to share everything. But then once the products were done, like they're just so strong on one substance. And then the difficulties too, whereas there's a lot of materials to develop, but this is touching a piece of advice, but it was difficult because we'd go through it. And then we'd sit down, we're like, we're putting this away. We're gonna come back in 2 days. And then we would take turns reading them and going through the rubric. And then we'd be like, oh my gosh, we thought we had it done, but those rubrics are fantastic. And so we just checkpoint our work against the rubric and then go back and add or delete according to that. So it just takes it was just making a commitment to us working together on a regular basis and planning time out to include your coalition members to get the best product you can and the best data you can. Hannah, does that cover it, or you want to add something? I'm
I
sure.
will just add in one more thing on a difficulty that Chris had touched on was obviously we said it was such a great positive that we had our coalition involved, but it really does take time to teach them everything. You know, as coalition staff, we were able to go through the academy. We did 3 separate weeks learning all about these 5 products. So to condense that into short periods of time throughout meetings to people who this is not their full-time job, you know, we have a lot of volunteers and varying degrees of knowledge on substance use prevention practices. So when we went through the academy, we went and did marijuana products, but then for the gut outcomes, we were doing alcohol. So that was one way that we used it as a teaching lesson, but also as a method to update the products. So since we had just gone through and created all new products about marijuana, we kind of took some of those to the coalition and taught them through marijuana. So that way we weren't telling them what we thought was going on with alcohol. They could see, okay, so this is how this product is laid out, a full example. And then they were able to start filling it in as their own on alcohol. I mean, even as far as the community assessment went, we gave it to them and we said, okay, so what do you think in here about marijuana? So what do we keep? What do you think is not necessary to talk about when it comes to alcohol? So for example, in Illinois, we were right at the beginning of legalized recreational marijuana. So that was a big part of our community assessment. So instead for alcohol, the coalition decided, let's change this to alcohol retailers. What is our alcohol retailer density in our local township? So it was very difficult to teach, but we did it probably over the course of 4 or 5 coalition meetings, no more than 20 minutes at a time, because it can also be very overwhelming. So that was difficult. And like Chris said, it takes a lot of patience. And Christina mentioned this as well. It takes a lot of time. So really prepping and being prepared that in order to involve the coalition, it may take, 6 months.
And we even split the coalition into 2 parts. Like Hannah worked on the logic model, I worked on the community assessment. So we kind of split them and they got to choose too what they wanted to do for that 20 minutes of action time in our meeting. So again, work with a teammate, a coworker, and share it that way. And then it's, not as bearing just on you, and it's more interesting for all your coalition partners too.
All right, thank you guys so much for your answers. So we'll go on to the last question. What's one piece of advice you would give to potential applicants? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's go ahead and see. Let's start with Christina.
Sure. So it's slightly moot point because it's required for year 2 coalitions now, but my advice was going to be apply even if you think you're not going to win, because I was like, oh, I don't know. I always think that, I don't know. I tend to think that I'm not going to win these things, or our coalition isn't going to win these things. My boss is like, we're applying. Like, okay, we're applying. But I think that not only is the application process really helpful in thinking through your data, like some of us had mentioned earlier. Yeah, I just apply, even if you think, oh, we don't have the data, it's not going to work out. I think you'll benefit from it regardless of where you end up. And yeah, I think that's my main advice. Just go for it.
All right, sounds good. Nicola.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Christina was saying is that apply, because I remember when the first time we applied, we didn't win, but the comments, the feedback that we received on our application was so much helpful that helped us review all the mistakes we made. And also we found ourselves to have less work to do for the second time we applied, because certain products just needed a little bit of tweaking. Meanwhile, other products need much more work. So we were able to change our process based on what we really needed to work on. So this is just to piggyback. And also I think that another advice that I would give people is that don't, I mean, outcomes is very important. They're very important about outcomes, and data is what supports our outcomes. But even if you feel that your data is not perfect, that if you feel that you feel like this is never, I mean, you feel even ashamed to apply for certain data you have, don't worry, just go ahead. This is what you have, and it's not your fault if there's a pandemic. So just go for it, and next year you will have better luck. You will be able to, at least this application and this process gives you a roadmap to follow for the upcoming year. And I think that's the best advice you can do. Just go for it. Don't worry if you even don't get top 25%. At least you improved your products. That's my advice.
That's great. Thank you. Hannah?
I am going to piggyback on Nicola and Christina and say apply. It's not a coincidence that we're all having the same advice. There was a lot of great things about this. One of the biggest pieces of advice in applying, though, is really utilizing the resources that CADCA offers in the application process. I believe Chris and I and another coworker of ours had gotten on the phone one time with Katrina way back, like as we were deciding if we were going to apply or not. She was very helpful. I know we sent her emails throughout the process as well. So, and then as you are working through your products and you get that feedback from CADCA, being able to really take in that information and, reaching out to those people, it really helped us grow stronger. It answered a lot of our questions and only made our coalition work even better. So.
Great. Chris?
Yes, Hannah, you hit that on spot on is what I was going to say too. And advice is a lot of questions are coming in about data. And I think Hannah and I at the Academy, that hit us really hard too, looking at our data and realizing we were kind of singular in our data resources. And we really spent time just like kind of brainstorming, going, you know what, we've got this, but we're just not using it. And we use our state Illinois Youth Survey for so much. And then we started thinking about, oh my gosh, we have youth groups. We have key informant interviews from students and what they said. We have key informant interview information from community members. We've had mini sector meetings, which means like we'll get together, like just our law enforcement to talk about a topic. We have information from there that we gather. In the spring, we send out a student survey to our schools and we get information from there. So we just, as far as advice goes, just start thinking of all the things you do, and that is your data, and it just all comes together. And then you can use national data too, just to affirm that, oh my God, we are aligned here with what's going on nationally. And now it's just kind of ingrained with us. We're like, oh my God, that is perfect. That's a great thing we have to use now in our presentation or on our one pager. But just kind of take a step back and look at your data, and it's there. You're doing it. And
quickly say, on top of what Chris mentioned, I love that point that you brought up, because when we were looking at this, we were sitting on a whole landmine of key informant interviews. We don't often realize that those discussions we're having at coalition meetings, those are our community members that are giving us that key informant interview information. So making sure you're keeping track of that, and you already have this extra source of data that really, they always say to triangulate your data with these different sources, that you already have another point of that. So being aware of the resources that are already right at your fingertips.
Yes. And then again, we can't reiterate enough, and then sending your products out, not to people in-house, but send it out to your coalition members who are willing to read. If they just are good editors and they want to, look at grammatical errors or something, include them in that. But ask for help, make it a team unified process. It's better for you, and it's fantastic for your coalition. And just empower them, because we would apply again. We would absolutely 100% apply again and do it again. And Katrina and CADCA was fabulous. She responds right away with any type of question we had. But So we encourage you, and we're here for you too. I'm sure you have our contact information. We're happy to talk to you at any time.
Yeah, I did put their contact information at the beginning of the slides under their name. So if you guys do want to reach out to them, feel free. They've been quite lovely to work with as well. Christina, did you have something that you wanted to say? You raised your hand, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Sure. I just wanted to get at the question. Let me lower my hand. Somebody had asked which data sources that we used and submitted. So I was going to say, so for we use our student survey data, the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, which is modeled off the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, definitely provides a big chunk of our data. And we also have that data broken down by our evaluator to look at like crosstabs and look at, who among the student population is more likely to use, broken down by grade, gender and other things. We also, because we applied for the alcohol retail access route, we have really great compliance check data from our police department. They do compliance checks twice a year using undercover operatives. And so we had some compelling data that showed we used to have a 25% failure rate, and now we're down to like 2%. So we had some great data that we could visually show going down on that. And then we have focus group data and key informant interviews from youth and parents and stakeholders. So I would definitely say, I think sometimes people think that qualitative data is not as strong, or well, we need the hard numbers. I think that it can be really compelling to tell the story about what's going on in the community. So I would definitely encourage you to gather qualitative data whenever you can. I mean, obviously you don't only want qualitative data, but you also don't only want quantitative data too. I think you need both to paint the picture. Triangulation, like Hannah said.
Yeah, exactly. Nicole?
Yeah, just one really quick that I want to say something that Anna was saying before about, I think it was Anna, you were saying about the resource in the CADCA website. And there is, I think, a very helpful and it's the primers that the CADCA put out. Especially when you're like we're in our sixth year, and you tend to forget certain things. And those primers, they're always updated, and they give you a very in-depth analysis of all the products, and advices on how to collect certain information and how they should look like. What is the wording of certain things. I think that helped me a lot, because I thought maybe it was too short, or maybe something was too elaborate on my application, in our application. Instead, with those, it help us review it and put it the right way. So I think the primers are something always to keep together when you do your application. So that's my that I forget to say before.
No, that's great. Thank you so much for adding that. I actually just put a link to the CADCA primers in the chat if you guys want to take a look at those and review them. All right. So I think that kind of ends our panelist discussion for right now. If anyone does have any questions a little bit later, feel free to put that in the Q&A box and we can answer those at the very end. All right. So big question is, when is it due? You still got a couple months. It's not due until Wednesday, July 26th. Like I said, it is all online, so just make sure you submit it to the online application form. When you do submit it, all the application materials need to be as one file. Since there are a lot of documents, it's hard to kind of go through each one individually per application. So please help us out. It needs to be in one file and submitted through the online application form. And then just to give you a basic timeline of everything, the first application is due July 26th. Things will be announced the first week of September, and then phase 2 applications would be due in the beginning of October. And then it all kind of works towards the National Leadership Forum in February. So let's see. And then that's really the end of it. If you don't, please go ahead and just put some questions in the Q&A box if you have any. Our panelists, if they'd like to share their one-pagers with attendees, I can get that out to everybody so that you guys can kind of see their work and what they've submitted, really. It doesn't look like we're getting any questions. So if that's the end, thank you everyone for attending our webinar, and then thank you to our panelists for being so lovely with this discussion and really sharing your experiences and advice with everybody. I hope that's been really helpful as you begin thinking about the application process and working with your coalition to apply. Once again, this webinar is being recorded and will be up on the website along with the slides. And like I mentioned, the one-page infographics, if you guys want to take a look at those that our past winners had submitted. But if you do have any questions or think of anything else later on, please go ahead and email me at gotoutcomes@cadca.org. And please go ahead and visit our website. You're going to see all the application requirements there. We just updated it, so it should be easy for you guys to kind of click around and see all the different items that you need, timelines, documents, things like that. So thank you all once again. You guys have a great rest of your day.